Hello everyone, welcome back. So we are continuing with Hauntober. We're going to be starting the week off with One Bite with a Stranger by Christine Warren. And this is the first of her Others series. The Others basically is just a community of non-human society, werewolves, vampires, demons, all sorts of things. I have limited space on my phone right now. No matter what I do, I cannot get the space to empty out more than it currently is. I don't know why. So let's move on with the review. This is the story of Regina McNeille and Dimitri Vidame. Trigger warnings for the story are going to be assault, and you could argue dubious consent for relations. It's one of those ones where it's not terribly clear. It is not 100% that it happened. It's kind of insinuated that it could happen, and I guess it's just kind of left up to the reader's mind whether or not that's what happened. So we start off with Regina. She's having girls' night with her best friends in the whole world, and during this girls' night we learn two very important factoids for the story. One being that 6 months ago, Regina and her friends all kind of created this agreement of what they call fantasy fixes. And the idea is that each woman would submit 5 fantasies, and when it is their turn, they blindly choose one of the fantasies, and all of the friends have to look within their male group, male friends, acquaintances, co-workers, so on and so forth, and find one that would be suitable to fulfill this fantasy. So it's kind of like blind dates, but rather than trying to set someone up for a possible relationship, they are setting them up for a sexual fantasy, which is kind of an interesting idea. If for whatever reason out of the group of friends, none of them have a guy that they know that would be a reasonable guy to put forward to fulfill this fantasy, then they all have to pay the forfeit, which is going for, I believe it was either 30 or 60 days of celibacy. Considering the fact that they have a standing agreement of setting each other up for fantasy fixes, I venture to say that's probably a big deal. So the other big tidbit of information that we get is that Regina has never actually been on a fantasy fix in 6 months. Out of a group of 5 friends, she should have gone at least once. However, she was exempt from it because when they made this agreement, she was in fact in a committed relationship. However, that relationship ended 4 months ago when she caught her fiance having relations with his receptionist. And of course, understandably, 4 months, I mean, it's not that long after a extended relationship that got to the level of engagement. So she hasn't really wanted to go on fantasy fixes. She hasn't really wanted to go on dates at all. So her friends were kind of letting her skate a little bit. But now, according to Queen Ava, who is kind of the ruler of the roost of their little group of friends, she's decided, nope, it's time, you're going on a fantasy fix. I don't care if you want to or not, you're getting fixed. So the fantasy that ends up getting chosen is to be picked up by a mysterious vampire. And so then it comes to light that one of the girls happens to know of a club that once a month holds a vampire ball, which is of course a themed party. So basically Regina gets gussied up by her friends in these stiletto heels, black leather pants, and a black satin corset, and dragged to this club. And she really doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to go on a fantasy fix. While she's there, she manages to get away from her friends and she intends to go home. But this is when she meets Dimitri Vidame. Dimitri is actually truly a vampire. Of course, nobody knows this yet. He sits on the Council of Others, which, for lack of a better analogy, the Council of Others is kind of like the United Nations. Each supernatural group has their own hierarchy and their own leaders, so to speak, but the leaders basically come to the council and if there's any interlocking politics between the groups, it kind of gets handled there. And Dimitri happens to be on the Council of Others. The council has received word that there are some rogue vampires going out and hunting humans inconspicuously in a way that would draw attention and possibly put the anonymity of each species at risk. So Dimitri and his friend, who is a werewolf, basically are at the club waiting to see if any of these rogues come about, because it would be a really great opportunity for them to show up. So he meets Regina and they end up going back to her apartment and having a very, very, very wild, steamy night. So at first Regina thinks it's going to be like a one-night stand, but Dimitri has decided that she's it. She's the woman he wants. She's his. And he basically tells her, I want to see you again, and we're gonna be in a relationship, essentially. And this doesn't go over too well with Ava, Regina's friend, because as far as Ava's concerned, she has not done her fantasy fix yet. Basically she says, you know, hey, yeah, you went home with the dude. I'm happy you had great sex, but it was not a fantasy fix. It was not an official fantasy fix set up by your friends. And you're going to get fixed, whether you like it or not. And whether Dimitri likes it or not, because you just met, so there's no way you are in a committed relationship yet. Basically stating, this isn't happening, right? Ava doesn't really like for things to happen outside of her allowances for her friends. So a lot of things come into play. Regina's ex-fiance comes into the scene. So does the receptionist that he was having relationships with. Of course, Regina finds out that Dimitri is a vampire, and she has to deal with that. So I'm going to do the character analysis, which isn't very big, and then we're going to get into some spoilers because I got some thoughts. So Regina is a very good girl. She doesn't understand why she has certain urges in the bedroom, and she doesn't really know what to do with the fact that Dimitri is a vampire. There isn't a whole lot of character development on Regina's part beyond learning to open herself up in the bedroom, so to speak. Dimitri at least is a little bit more understanding of the fact that Regina is mortal. She doesn't understand these things, and he tries to be supportive and understanding of the fact that she may not want to become a vampire. And when she basically tells him, I want you to turn me, he's like, well, I want you to think about it because, you know, it's a lot to take in, you know, and I want you to be sure, because once it's done, it's done. There's no take backs, essentially. So it was a good story for sure. Here's my thoughts. I didn't like how quickly Regina was willing to turn herself into a vampire. These two have been dating for like a week and a half at max. And granted, yes, he's a vampire. Yes, it's a fictional world, but she is still human. And for her to sit there and not even put any thought into the fact that she may want to have kids one day, which in this world, vampires might be allowed to have kids, might be able to have kids, I don't know, but she doesn't know either, and she doesn't ask. And two, she doesn't even think of the fact that she's going to have to watch all of her friends, all of her family get old and die. Now, that is something that you should really put thought into. I mean, I know that in fictional pieces, this idea of love conquers all and love always wins is a big deal. And I'm not saying that she wouldn't have chosen it anyway, or shouldn't have chosen it anyway. I'm saying I would have liked to see the character put a little bit more thought into it than just, you're hot, you're sexy, you F me really good, turn me into a vampire, which is kind of how it kind of came off to me. You may disagree with me. That being said, the lack of character development is not something that goes on throughout the story. This is the very first story in, I think it's like 16 or 17 books to date. So there is world building. There is world building that happens in every single story because, again, each group of the others is different, has their own background, so to speak. But we are establishing the others. We're establishing the coexistence. We're establishing a lot. I would have liked to see more character development. I would have liked to see more thought on the characters' parts pertaining to how certain things are going to affect them long term and their friends and family long term. But that being said, it is a good book. It is not my favorite out of the series. I'm going to say I give this book a 2.7 or a 2.8. I think I have it listed as a 3-star on Goodreads. I haven't figured out how to do the split rating yet, but yeah, somewhere between 2.7 to 3-star. It's nothing to write home about, but it's enjoyable. And like I said, it does establish the scene and the world for future books, which do get better. So I hope this review was helpful for you. If you have any insights of your own, please let me know in the comments down below. If you have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments down below. And as always, you have a wonderful week. I look forward to seeing you at the next video. Have a great day. Take care.